Okay, thank you all for coming again. So today we're talking about what I'm used to calling the four immeasurables. Different traditions use different terms. Some traditions call them the four Brahma Viharas, which can be translated, I've seen it translated as the four divine abodes, the four divine dwelling places. There was another translation I saw that I'm blanking on right now. But anyway, different traditions call them different things. Four sublime states. Yeah, thank you. That's another one. The four sublime states. That's another translation for these. But I'm used to calling them the four immeasurables. There's a prayer from the Tibetan tradition that, when I was practicing Tibetan Buddhism, I think all of the lineages do this, and it's one of the standard prayers. Anytime you sit down to receive teachings, anytime you start to do a practice, you would do this prayer. And it goes, "May all Mother's sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion." So, first of all, let's take a look at the first line. May all mother sentient beings. The word mother is in here because we are supposed to look at all sentient beings, all other beings, as if they have been our kind mothers in the past, in previous lifetimes. So this is why we say all mother sentient beings, whether they're male or female. Boundless as the sky, meaning they're innumerable. We can't count them all. So this is for every possible being. We're saying this prayer for every possible being throughout all space and time. So may they have happiness and the causes of happiness. Well, if you look below to the list, this numbered list of 1 to 4, happiness and the causes of happiness. Here we're talking about loving kindness. So we're wishing happiness for all sentient beings. We're wishing that they be happy and have the causes of happiness, but not simply temporary happiness. We're not talking about them getting something shiny and new. We're talking about the real, perfect, complete, lasting happiness of enlightenment, really. So may they have happiness and the causes of happiness. So that is, may they have the wisdom and compassion themselves to achieve the happiness of enlightenment. So then the next line, may they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. So this is compassion. So in compassion here, if you look at number 2, seeing the suffering of sentient beings and needing to do something about it. So we're wishing that they'll be liberated from suffering now and the causes of suffering, the causes of future suffering. What are the causes of future suffering? Ultimately, it boils down to ignorance. So we see with this second line the ignorance of sentient beings and how it leads them to suffer. And we are saying, may you be free, not only from the suffering now, but from the causes of future suffering. May you be free from ignorance. Now, compassion, of course, if we really feel loving kindness and compassion, we'll really want to do something to benefit beings. But I think we've talked about in the past how the reality is, because we are unenlightened beings, we have ignorance, sometimes we just don't have the skill to do something practical. Sometimes we just don't have the ability to know what to do to help someone. Maybe sometimes we have an idea of what to do to help someone, but we can't do it. We're not the ones who can do it. So we shouldn't think, though, that prayers like this are useless, because at the very least, we are imprinting upon the mind these feelings of loving kindness and compassion. Even if we can't practically apply them in the outer world, we are working to become the kind of being that can, to become a bodhisattva and then a Buddha. So saying these prayers ultimately have an effect. We might not see the impact immediately, though. So then, may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. This is sympathetic joy, number 3, rejoicing in the accomplishments and virtues of sentient beings. So may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. So normally, worldly happiness, happiness that comes from temporary things, has the roots of sorrow in it because it will end. Again and again, we talk about how we get what we want, but then we lose it. We get what we want, and it makes us happy for a while, but then that happiness wears off. So we're saying, may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. This happiness that is free from sorrow is rooted in accomplishing virtue. So that's what sympathetic joy is. So when we see the virtues of others or their virtuous accomplishments, some people do have accomplishments, but they're not virtuous. If I'm a businessman and I accomplish destroying someone else's business by lying about them and cheating them and stabbing them in the back, there's nothing virtuous about that, right? So you can't have non-virtuous accomplishments. So we see the virtues of others, we see the good qualities of others, and we say, oh, well, these are causes for their ultimate happiness, the happiness of enlightenment. And so may they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And then may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So equanimity here is just listed specifically. So the last one, remaining stable and calm in the face of triumph and defeat, praise and blame, and so on, in regard to oneself and others. So we've talked about this before. No matter what comes a Buddha's way, look at that smile on the Buddha's face up there on the statue. No matter what comes the Buddha's way, their mind is clear like glass. They are completely unperturbed, completely undisturbed. But the rest of us, the littlest thing happens, and we're pulling our hair out. Look what happened to all my hair. You know, I've been shaving my head for many years now, even before I became a monk, because it was getting a little thin anyway, so I just started shaving it. In fact, this is a little bit off the subject, but I was living in Minneapolis just after college, and I came home with my head shaved, and I was wearing a leather jacket and a t-shirt, and I had a chain attached to my belt buckle with my wallet, you know, blue jeans and like combat boots. And I thought, Mom's not gonna like this. I'm a rebel. She opened the door, and she saw me and she said, oh, hey, I love the jacket, and that's the best haircut you've ever had. I'm not sure about the boots, but I love that jacket. I was so disappointed. My attempt at rebellion failed. So anyway, I've been shaving my head for a long time. And then you've seen me with whiskers and things. I hate shaving, so you've seen me with whiskers and things. But one time, after many years of shaving my head, I didn't for several days. Maybe I was sick or something. Then I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, wow, I'm almost bald. I was a little bothered by it. So anyway, yeah, I didn't have a lot of equanimity about that. But with equanimity, if we cultivate this equanimity, then no matter what comes our way, we'll be able to handle it. Tai Anmin talks about this in his Dharma talk sometimes. He said, we shouldn't pray for fewer problems, we should pray for better skills. Problems will come. But if we have the peace of mind, the equanimity to deal with it, we'll be like a mountain. A mountain is unmoved by the wind, right? So no matter what comes our way, we'll be able to handle it. And it's not just negative things. Good things come our way, and then we get, whoa, we get all excited, and we're jumping up and down, and you know, I remember reading something recently about heart attacks and how it's not just negative surprises that can lead to a heart attack, it's positive surprises too. Apparently, sometimes people find out they've won the lottery or something and then they can have a heart attack because the shock, the happy shock. I'm not telling you don't be happy, you know, but equanimity. Equanimity is a great skill to have. So we're here in this prayer, we're wishing these things for others. But by wishing these things for others, we are cultivating them within ourselves. And I think it's also important to remember that when we say prayers of loving kindness and compassion, these prayers for other beings, we're saying, may all mother sentient beings, all sentient beings, we are also sentient beings who need loving kindness and compassion. So we are included in these prayers that we're saying for all beings. So we need these things too. And by saying these prayers, we're cultivating them within ourselves. So I have a note here, this second to last paragraph. So I said at the beginning, they're also called the four Brahma Viharas, or the four abodes of Brahma, the four sublime states, the four immeasurables. There is a sutra or sutta in the Pali Canon called the Tevijja Sutta. And the Buddha is asked how to commune with Brahma. So this is a Hindu man who's asking him how to commune with God, basically, right? Or Brahma, the king of the gods. And so he gives him the practice of these four immeasurables as the path. He says, meditate on this, cultivate these qualities. And he explains that they are to be extended to all beings as the sound of a conch shell goes in all directions. You know what a conch shell is, right? Like in Hawaii, you see them, it's a shell from, they go boo, like that. The Tibetans use these too in their ritual practices. It's spelled conch, but I think the proper pronunciation is conch. I read somewhere the proper pronunciation is conch. So we should extend, so we cultivate these feelings within ourselves, and then we send it out. We wish this, we radiate this out, this loving kindness, this compassion, this sympathetic joy, and this equanimity to all beings, like the sound of a conch shell. So the sound goes in all directions, right? So that's what we're doing. But then the Buddha says, he explains that these four immeasurables, together with the realization of the three seals, we talked about this before, impermanence, suffering and or dissatisfaction, and non-self. He says this will lead to nibbana, nirvana we say in the Mahayana tradition. So having loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, in addition to wisdom basically, the wisdom of really knowing, not just intellectually, but completely knowing and completely living, the truth of impermanence, of suffering and dissatisfaction and non-self, that is the path out of suffering and into enlightenment. So this is a practice that we can do. We can do this as a meditation. And you can sit maybe for the next 6 months if you want to at home. Take a few minutes in the morning while you're having your cup of coffee or whatever you like to get the day going. And you can just focus on loving kindness, loving kindness, loving kindness. And then maybe for another 6 months, you can do compassion and then sympathetic joy and equanimity. Or if you sit for 10 minutes, you can work on all four of these, if you like. And then also maybe spend a few minutes in the evening meditating on impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Review those teachings. And again, you can focus for a year on just impermanence, and then a year on just suffering, a year on non-self, or do them all in one session. And you are absolutely imprinting upon the mind the path out of suffering and into enlightenment. So we can use this as a meditation to practice. But we can also use this as what we would call like a litmus test. We can check in with ourselves throughout the day. What is my mind like right now? Okay, I'm interacting with this person at home, at work, in my neighborhood, here at the temple. What is my mind like right now? Am I feeling loving kindness? Oh, okay, no, I'm not. I'm feeling exactly the opposite. That's not the path to happiness. I need to let that go. Am I feeling compassion for this person? I've talked to you about this before, and this came up in a discussion with some of my classmates, the issue of karma, and how, you know, if someone says, oh, well, something bad has happened to you, well, that's your karma. Deal with it.